16th, and July 29th. Sharon moved. Rachel second. Any discussion, comments, corrections, alterations? Any of the above? None. Easy group. Okay. All those in favor, are you going to take the roll then on that roll call? Or do we
That one you can do by voice vote, right?
Okay. All those.
Anyone on the phone?
No.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Nay? Unanimous. Thank you. Monthly reports. Okay, financial report. Julie?
You can turn that on, Julie.
Can you hear me? There we go. All right, good afternoon. So we are reporting for the month of July, and we are in the 7th month of the fiscal year, which means that revenues and expenses should be roughly 58.3% of budget. For revenues year to date, we are at 53.2% compared to last year at 56.7%. And in expenditures, we are 56.8 compared to last year at 53.8. This year, as you guys remember, you did a budget amendment in May and June, and so our discretionary spending is basically cut to nothing. So whatever departments have, it should be more in line, and the departments are doing a good job at meeting their budget expectations, and there's nothing new to note that wasn't in your packet. So and as everyone is aware, coronavirus has impacted revenues, but with the monitoring of revenues month to month, we believe as of today that the action that the board took in May and June is still sufficient for revenues where revenues are coming in, and so we are not needing to go to do that. As a big picture, sales tax combined in June, which was the first full month that was following the shelter in place, was actually 2.5% above, which was anomaly above the 2019 receipt for June. And year to date, we are 7.5% below the expected revenue through June, based on previous year's receipts. We are still projecting that the sales tax combined will be about 1.6 million short, or 12.9%. Local use tax is doing exceptionally well, and they it looks like it will be about $208,000 above what we budgeted. Income tax for August and July had a receipt that was higher than the prior 2 months, but this shouldn't come to any surprise since the income tax filing deadlines were delayed, and so income tax is still projected, though, even though July and August was good, to be roughly 3.9%, $150,000 below budget. Personal property tax, we have one more really large receipt to be received in October, and so that will really give us a pretty good idea of where we'll end up for the year for personal property tax replacement. And so far, we project will be roughly just about $400,000 below budget, or 8.4%. The August receipt, however, was just about $500,000, or sorry, 500% higher than August of 19. So PBRT always ebbs and flows, and it doesn't have a really good prediction, but October it will be a large receipt month compared, and then we have one more after that, which will be in December. Charges for services so far are about 6.6% below budget is where we're projecting them, so that'll be about $580,000. And property taxes, with what the activity is, we are still projecting will probably be roughly about 97.5% of what we levied. However, until everything comes through, that is a best guess. So we have, we're working on budget, Randy, Scott, and myself, along with 3 county board members, meeting with everybody. And in October, we'll have one more month to have a pretty good gauge as to where we'll end up this year, and then the numbers that we can use to help to project where we'll be going in 2021. the last thing I want to note from the packet that was in there is that for the first time in several years, for this month in July, the JDC was actually at 16% fund balance. So we've been monitoring that. A lot of that has to do with the cuts and then a little bit higher expected revenues that have been received for salary reimbursements. So I just wanted to give that little bit of good news that even in the midst of craziness, that fund is starting to turn around slowly but surely. Those were just the highlights that I grabbed from the packet that was included. Did anyone have any questions?
Yes, Jim.
Julie Scott, just so my understanding, when we corrected everything says below budget. So I know those are revenues that we never changed revenue projections. So this is below what we originally budgeted, not considering when we cut revenues, correct?
Right. The board only cut the
Or
expenditure side.
expenditures, sorry.
The board only took action to cut the expenditure. So in Julie's report, when she talks about being short on revenues, it's in relationship to what we budgeted. And you never took action to reduce the revenues. We just projected what we thought the shortfall was going to be.
Anyone else have questions for Julie? Getting off easy, Julie. Easy group here today. Okay, thank you. Okay, next thing we have the Peoria Riverfront Museum, Wilhelm Road Bridge refunding. Handle that, Scott?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to have Julie summarize that for the committee.
All right, so Scott Sorrell, Randy Bruner, myself, along with Steve Rickert, went through as a team as we walked through this bond refunding. We, at the very beginning of the process, we did a bond rating call. Mr. Rickert wasn't on the call, but we did maintain our Moody's rating of AA2, which is very good for our debt. And I definitely believe that a lot of the ability to keep that rate was because the board took immediate action with coronavirus. And so over the years and the current actions proved to investors and the rating agencies that we are very actively managing the county finances. So kudos to you guys. We did produce another fun document if you guys don't have enough stuff to read already. The official statement went out. It's 50 pages. There's quite a bit of work that is outside of our rating what markets the county to investors as far as whether or not they want to invest in our bonds and refundings. And so I encourage you all to read that. There are more and more standards in recent years to disclose big impacts to the county finances. So we did have Disclosure Council work with us to make sure that we presented everything as fairly as we know them to be as of the current time. So we went out to market originally on August 26th, and that day was the day prior to Chairman Powell of the Federal Reserve having this speech. And there was also another municipality that had bonds out for sale that were had more favorable rates than we did. So we had one person give us a bid, but it wasn't with what they were trying to change the call date, and so that made it where it wouldn't be advantageous for us. The yield wasn't as high as we should expect on A2, so they advised us to rescind the sale and then to go out to market the next week. So that's what we did. And we were able to sell on September 1st, which actually we closed today. So the sale is final as of today. And so we have a realized bond yield of 1.15%. So this is combined with both issuances. So that is a reoffering premium of just under 3.2 million, and that was able to pay off 2.76 million in bond outstanding debt. So even though the coupons are quote unquote higher than what you would think, because they are high, we were able to settlement at a premium in order to pay off the debt. And so for the Riverfront Museum, that debt is repaid by the public facility sales tax. So we'll have roughly just under $300,000 in annual savings. It starts higher, and then it will go down to 275 by the end of the loan. That is estimated because these loans were a part of the Build America Bond program, and so with the federal government doing the sequestration, it's not exact, but we have roughly just about $300,000 in savings. So that is good, and that what doesn't get spent on debt for public facility sales tax is what we use for capital. And then for the Wilhelm Road, that is repaid by general fund, and we have just about $20,000 a year in savings, and that was a total net savings of $203,000. So it was a really great financing, refunding, and hopefully we'll have good favorable results when we have to do Headington Oaks and whenever that takes place.
Thank
Any
you, Julie.
questions?
Any questions from anyone? Yes, Steve, Mr. Ricker.
Yeah, no questions. I'll just make a couple comments. Appreciate being involved in this process. And so, as Julie very accurately commented, the bond rating for the county has been really good, but the A2A or the
AA2.
AA2 rating. So the ratings were good. The really timing was perfect to have that rating come in, position us to sell. And I think, what was the total amount of value back to us in savings, Julie? over the
So
term?
the total was $3,190,427. So just under 3.2, and that helped us to pay down 2.8 million in bonds.
So, I mean, that's taxpayers' money that we wisely reinvested in the bonds or reissued the bonds to save that money for taxpayers. So I think that's a really positive story to get out there and let people know. So appreciate Julie's help. Been trying to get Julie to do a media day and put her in front of a camera, but we're working on it, Julie.
I am in front of a camera right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Any, yes, Kate?
So the savings you're saying is somewhere around 300 roughly, and then it goes down to 275, and that's all money that we can now spend on infrastructure.
That is now money that will be available for other capital projects, because whatever is saved in public facility sales tax will be sent over to the capital fund.
Not all of the savings is in public facilities sales tax.
Not all of it.
Okay.
No.
Do you know
Some, just a little bit is in general fund.
Do you know what the amount is that's just for the public facilities sales tax?
So annually for public facility sales tax, it starts at just under $300,000 annually.
Okay.
And then as the years progress and the debt gets paid off, it'll go down to about $275,000
Okay.
by the end of the 10 years. And then in general fund, there's an additional savings, and that fluctuates. It all depends on what the interest and principal payments are, but it's anywhere from just about $17,000 to $22,000
And what's our current?
savings.
I don't remember off the top of my head. What's the current amount that we have budgeted from that we are now getting from public facilities sales tax for infrastructure costs?
For revenues, our annual,
You talking about on a quarter of a point?
No, I mean, what's our current amount that we have to spend on infrastructure in our budget? Is it around 180? I couldn't remember the number. Maybe Jimmy knows. Just this is a.
construction
I think this will
budget. So in 2000, I don't know if I'll try and answer. So in 2020, we did have a budget transfer from public facility sales tax of $800,000 that we were going to transfer to the capital projects fund.
Maybe that's the number.
And that number actually was eliminated during the rejections for coronavirus. And that was mainly because sales tax is not coming in as what we projected this year, we had to cut that. Next year, we'll be able to transfer a little bit of money other than the savings. I know Scott has ideas of how we can talk to the board about strategies of what to do with that savings moving forward. Whether or not that's to spend it on capital right now or to earmark it for when the public facility sales tax sunsets in 10 years.
Okay, thanks. I was just trying to understand what, there was a huge gain or not really a big,
I mean, so the gain, the realized gain to the public facility sales tax fund will be about $300,000.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the quarter point, whether it's public safety or public facilities, at the time the bonds were issued, over time generated between 4.3 and $5.2 million in receipts. The bonding in the original package for, and I'm going to set the Wilhelm Road Bridge Fund aside, the bonding for PRM, I think is about 2.9 million a year in expense. So the remainder we have retransferred into a special capital fund. So that thing has fluctuated a little bit since we got started, but the net difference between the receipts and the bond expense is fluctuating over time. And I don't think I'm hearing what the quarter point's generating right now, Scott. I think it's more like 3.8.
Yeah, current year, we're probably looking to be right around 3.8, maybe 3.825.
So if you want to know who pays attention to it, call me.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Rand. Okay, any other comments, questions for Julie? If not, thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Okay, miscellaneous. Comments? We are working on the 2021 budget. Met with all of the different elected officials one time through. Varying degree of success, I would say, at this point in time. But we're still working at it, and some we will have to go back and have some other meetings. So until we have more definite numbers, we'll leave it at that. Mr. Rand, you have a comment?
Yes, please. Mr. Sorrell, some questions came up yesterday and the day before in conversations I and you have had with some of our elected officials concerning the template or the tool that was provided to them to begin their work from. And the question is whether or not the documents they received or the direction they were received was based on the unadjusted 2020 spending plan, or was documents that showed what they were expected to achieve and then annualize for 2021 as the new norm. Could you comment and clear that up? And
Yeah, happy to, Mr. Chairman. So for everyone with the exception of the sheriff, the state's attorney, and the election commission, the direction that was given to everyone else was that the amended budget based on action the board took at your May County Board meeting was the starting point for FY21. And through the budget process, we may reduce that, or in a couple of cases, we may recommend to increase that. For the sheriff's office, the state's attorney's office specifically, we looked then at the action you took at your June County Board meeting, and we took that, we took the original cut, and then we annualized what you increased in June, and then added those two numbers together, and that was the starting point for those two offices. For the election commission, we actually worked back a little bit because the most of the costs that you approved in June for the election commission are really one-time costs. There's not a recurring cost there because it was mostly supplies or contractual obligations versus personnel. And so Election Commission was directed to put those aside and then work back from that original cut in May, again, as the starting point. And as we've worked through the process, there's going to be some offices that will be asked to cut more than that. There will be some offices that maybe, based on circumstances, may be awarded or be recommended to have a higher appropriation when it comes to the board for decision and action.
So a follow-up, Scott. So was there was there an instruction page that detailed what you just laid out to me, to the two groups?
So there was there were multiple meetings using Microsoft Teams where all those department heads, whether they be appointed or elected, were invited. Obviously, not all of them appeared, where it was verbally instructed. And then I believe there was at least an email communication. There wasn't a specific memo or anything like that. But we made the departments know on multiple occasions that was the starting point for this year's budget process.
So, in your opinion, if someone, for example, was to say, well, we thought we were starting with our full 2020 unadjusted business plan that was ratified in November or December of 2019, you would say that's incorrect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, Kate?
Was there ever, I like to look at the budget book, but is there a budget book that's available with the revised numbers that we?
No, but after, I think it was the discussion you and I had yesterday, we're going to put as an attachment to Friday's weekly update from me, we're going to take the financial report that's in this committee's packet today, and we're going to add an adopted column to it so that you can see what the original adopted budget was, what the revised budget is, and where they're tracking year to date.
Okay, because I found in the 2020 budget that's available to us, my question that I asked Julie, which is $800,000 is transferred to capital projects, but I don't know how that changed from what we adjusted in, was it May, June,
In May.
May? So
So
I have no idea
A
what,
significant portion of that was reduced. And what Julie alluded to, and what I think either Mr. Salzer's committee, because that's where the capital budget fund goes through, or this committee as part of the budget process will need to have a policy discussion about is, do we want to use those dollars in a pay-as-you-go fashion as we receive them each year, those savings from the refinancing, or do we want to bank those so that when the public facility sales tax gets turned off in 10 years and we have no other means to fund capital improvements at that point in time, you have a little bit of a nest egg that could be somewhere between probably $2.7 and $3.2 million that you can continue to at least do capital projects for a period of time beyond that. Because absent this board at some point between in the next 10 years deciding to ask the voters and the voters approving to keep that sales tax going, the one and only revenue stream we have for capital improvements for our buildings goes away completely in 10 years.
saving for a rainy day sounds nice, but I know there's an awful lot of roofing that needs to be redone.
Absolutely correct. You know, we have over $8 million of need and less than $1 million a year of ability to fund.
Any others? Seeing none, we'll go to miscellaneous.
I know you're listening. We're gonna kind of move things around and take a couple of minute break, and then you'll hear Andrew call the meeting to order.
Okay, should I stay on? You think stay on, or should I
Yep.
call back in with you?
Yep, go ahead and
I'll
stay on.
stay on then.
Go ahead and stay on, Tom.
Okay. Okay, thanks.